All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unravel what is honestly one of the most fascinating diagnostic mysteries in modern medicine. We're looking at two conditions that sound incredibly similar, but operate in completely different ways. It's a wild tale of sugar, water, and hidden chemical messengers.
So here's the ultimate medical hook. How in the world did a super common blood sugar disease and a rare, potentially life-threatening water balance disease end up sharing the exact same primary name? I mean, it's a question that has confused patients and, frankly, medical students for decades. Well, the answer actually lies in some ancient clinical observations. You see, the word diabetes simply refers to the passing of massive volumes of urine. But honestly, that's where the similarities completely end. While mellitus refers to sweet, glucose-heavy urine, insipidus literally means tasteless, totally devoid of dissolved solutes. So we're looking at two entirely different biological mechanisms that just happen to cause the exact same surface-level symptom.
And the biological divergence is absolutely staggering when you look at it closely. Diabetes mellitus? That's all about a failure to mobilize GLUT4 glucose transporters using insulin, which leaves sugar trapped in the blood. But diabetes insipidus stems from a failure to mobilize AQP2 water channels in your kidneys. It's an entirely different cellular transport system breaking down.
So the crucial takeaway here is that diabetes insipidus has literally nothing to do with insulin. It is entirely dependent on vasopressin, which you might know is the antidiuretic hormone. This is essentially the master chemical messenger produced in your brain that explicitly tells your kidneys to hold on to free water rather than just flushing it all out into your bladder.
Now, it gets really interesting when we map out exactly where this hormone comes from. We can actually trace its journey, starting all the way up in the magnocellular neurons of the hypothalamus, routing down through the infundibular stalk, and finally resting in the posterior pituitary gland. It's this incredibly delicate neurological highway, and any damage along this route completely disrupts the human body's entire water balance.
Because medical names really ought to reflect the actual underlying pathophysiology rather than just some ancient observations of a symptom, leading endocrine societies globally proposed a massive shift in 2022. They formally proposed changing the name of diabetes insipidus to arginine vasopressin disorder. This effectively tosses out that super confusing diabetes label entirely.
Under this new naming system, the clinical picture splits cleanly into two distinct categories. First up, we have AVPD, which simply means the pituitary gland isn't secreting the hormone at all. On the flip side, AVPR means the hormone is definitely present in the bloodstream, but mutant V2 receptors in the kidneys are basically just ignoring its instructions.
Condensing all this massive clinical data gives you a really clear, rapid-fire look at just how completely opposite these two conditions are. For instance, the pituitary gland plays a massive role in central DI, but has absolutely no role in mellitus. Or consider how obesity increases the incidence of mellitus, but doesn't factor into the water disorder at all. They are exact opposites across the board.
And the symptoms of this water disorder, they are intense. The hallmarks include extreme polyuria. We're talking about urinating over 50 milliliters per kilogram daily and highly dilute urine. Because of this, patients experience extreme polydipsia, sometimes drinking up to 20 liters of fluid in a single day just to keep up. If left untreated, this massive fluid loss rapidly leads to severe dehydration and incredibly dangerous electrolyte imbalances.
So how exactly do doctors diagnose this? Well, historically, to figure out what was breaking down, they relied on something called the water deprivation test. It was an indirect, honestly challenging process where a patient was intentionally dehydrated to stimulate thirst. Then doctors would carefully monitor if the body attempted to concentrate the urine before administering a synthetic hormone called desmopressin to map out the response.
The problem? This indirect test is highly flawed. Sure, it was the gold standard for a long time, but patients with partial hormone deficiency, or folks who just chronically drink too much water out of habit, a condition known as primary polydipsia, could produce these overlapping, highly misleading test results. It was incredibly frustrating for the doctors and absolutely miserable for the patients going through it.
Thankfully, modern medicine moved past the flaws of that old dehydration test. The new detective work relies on a rapid, hypertonic saline infusion. Here's how it goes. You stop any diuretic meds, infuse a highly salty solution to intentionally spike blood sodium levels above 150 milliosmoles per liter, directly measure the brain's hormonal reaction in the plasma, and then quickly rehydrate the patient. It's much faster and it's far more direct.
But of course, there's a catch. Measuring the vasopressin hormone directly is an absolute nightmare for clinical labs. It has a tiny 16-minute half-life,
so it vanishes almost instantly, and it chemically binds to blood platelets, which makes getting an accurate count nearly impossible. And that is exactly why brilliant medical scientists pivoted to its stable twin peptide, Copeptin.
The biology behind our newly discovered biomarker is just beautiful. You see, Copeptin is cleaved from the exact same pre-pro hormone as vasopressin. Because they're created and released together in identical 1-to-1 amounts, measuring the highly stable Copeptin gives you a perfect mirror image of that highly unstable vasopressin. It's such an elegant biological workaround.
The absolute game changer here is that by finding a stable, fast, and reliable surrogate biomarker like Copeptin, doctors can now diagnose this complex disorder with incredible precision. If Copeptin is under 4.9 picomoles per liter after the saline infusion, boom, it's definitively central DI or AVPD. If it's over that, it's primary polydipsia. This one diagnostic advancement saves patients from days of cumbersome, totally inaccurate testing.
And once the mystery is officially solved, the treatment paths diverge completely. You prescribe insulin or hypoglycemic drugs for the sugar disorder. But for the water disorder, you either replace the missing antidiuretic hormone with desmopressin therapy for AVPD, or you utilize specific diuretics to manage that underlying kidney resistance in AVPR.
When you look at a healthy posterior pituitary gland on an MRI, there's this thymus bright spot, and that is exactly where the body stores its vasopressin. It really is a visual conclusion to our journey, taking us from confusing symptoms right down to the precise neurological source. If that bright spot is missing on a scan, it's a huge structural clue that the gland simply isn't storing that vital water-balancing hormone.
As this explainer highlights, medical science is continuously evolving our understanding of the human body, turning these confusing, overlapping symptoms into hyper-precise molecular diagnoses. Which really leaves us to wonder, if unraveling the Copeptin peptide solved the deep diagnostic mystery of diabetes insipidus, what other hidden chemical messengers are just waiting to be discovered right now?